In the midst of midlife, a quiet revolution often begins. A shift in priorities, a yearning for something more, a desire to rewrite the narrative of our lives. We've spent years building careers, raising families, and fulfilling the expectations of others, but now a new voice emerges, whispering of untapped potential and unfulfilled dreams. This is a time of transition, a time of rediscovering ourselves, a time of embracing the freedom to create a life that truly aligns with our deepest desires. For many women in this stage, the traditional 9 to 5 no longer fits. I know it didn't for me. The rigid structure, the endless commutes, the feeling of being tethered to a desk, it all feels stifling, a barrier to the flexibility and autonomy we crave. My guest today, Molly Rose Speed, founder of the Virtual Assistant Academy, discovered a path that not only offered her the freedom and flexibility she desired, but also empowered her to create a thriving business supporting others on a similar journey. As a military spouse, Molly Rose understands the challenges of balancing career aspirations with the demands of family and a mobile lifestyle. Stay tuned to hear Molly Rose's inspiring story and discover how becoming a virtual assistant could be the key to unlocking your own midlife revolution. Or perhaps hiring a virtual assistant could help you design a career that honors your priorities and finally helps you create a life of purpose, flexibility, and joy.
Welcome to Making Change with Your Money, a podcast that highlights the stories and strategies of women who experienced a big life transition and overcame challenges as they redefined financial success for themselves. Now here's your host, certified financial planner, Laura Rotter.
Welcome, Molly Rose, to the Making Change with Your Money podcast.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk with you and share some knowledge with your audience.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to learning more about your business. I'm sure our listeners are interested. So I'll start as I always do with the question, what was money like in your family growing up?
Yes, great question. Money for me, I came 10 years after my siblings, same parents.
Oh,
It was there. It was never a worry. It was available, right? And when I was in junior high, my parents separated, and my dad was more of the breadwinner than my mom, and that's when I really started to understand having to budget and having to make sacrifices on a restaurant or a place to eat because she didn't have as much as she used to, but it was always okay. There was always enough to go around. But I think because of that situation, it taught me how to be responsible with money because you don't always have it.
And so how did that translate when you say it taught you to be responsible about money?
Yeah, I'd say in a good way and also kind of in a detrimental way because I'm extremely frugal. Um, I'm very responsible. I'm a steward of my finances. I've always been the girl that saved before she spent. If I was given $100 bill, I'd hang on to it. I wouldn't spend it. That was me. So I've had to be, as an adult now, I'm in my 30s. I go to the grocery store and if I want the blueberries, but the raspberries are on sale, I get the raspberries. I still have that. That in me.
I love the self-knowledge that you're
Yeah.
watching
Oh,
yourself make these
yeah.
decisions.
Oh, definitely.
So were you someone who had a job from a young age?
Yeah, the minute I could start working. I was 15 and up the round the corner from where we lived, there was an ice cream shop, and that's where I started working for 5.15 an hour. Yeah.
And was that money yours, or were you expected to contribute it to the family?
Nope, it was all mine, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. It's nice
Yeah,
spending money when you're younger.
it was. Yeah, even just a little bit. It's all you really need when you're that young.
Exactly, to buy some fun things that you don't have to ask your mother for.
Hmm.
And what were the expectations around education? I always like to get a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So expectation was to go to college. I remember being later in my high school years, I worked in restaurants as a hostess, and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to be a chef. I wanted to go to culinary school. And my dad quickly stomped that. He's like, no, we're going to go to college first. And then if you want to cook, you can do that. And I'm very grateful for that because I know it's a lot to make it in that world. So the expectation was to go to college, and I went to a private school for a semester, my freshman year. And then I transferred. I didn't love it. I wasn't prepared for it. And they didn't have football, and that was a big deal to me. So I came home at Thanksgiving and I said to my mom, I don't think this is the place for me. Should I transfer now or at the end of the year? And she's like, do it now. And now I understand why. I
Yeah.
transferred to a state school, and she said, the cost. So what my debt was from one semester at the private school is what I graduated with in student loan debt from the state school. So I'm also very grateful that I made that decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's nice that that decision was not purely a financial one,
Yes.
um,
Yeah. No.
that you had wanted to leave the private school to begin with. And was there a
Mhm.
football team affiliated
Oh,
with
yes.
the school?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it is very fun to go to a rah-rah school.
Yeah.
Also works out academically. Did you have an idea, Molly Rose, of what you wanted to do?
No, I wasn't one of those, I want to be a nurse or I want to be a teacher. I ended up graduating with a degree in finance, actually. So that's
Hmm.
kind of where my finance love comes from. And but I bounced around business school. I didn't know if I wanted to do marketing or accounting or whatever. And I landed on finance, which is what my dad did. So I kind of just followed that path to start. And then I didn't keep going with it.
I'm just curious, having being
Yeah.
someone who's obviously been in the financial industry my entire life in different iterations. Finance is quite a broad term. What
hmm
specifically both did you grow up watching your father do, and what did it mean to you when you were?
Yeah. So my dad was in insurance. I'd say he didn't have his Series 7. So what was it? Series 6? Was that the one that you could do insurance Roth and 401ks and all of that? That's kind of where he hit, but just sold a lot of life insurance, sold
Okay,
a lot of that
he was in sales.
in
I
sales,
mean, I guess that's part of
in
it.
financial services sales, yes.
Yes.
And so I watched him do that, love hate kind of for it, but I loved it. I could sell anyone insurance because I love insurance. So I would go with him on meetings at night around dinner time and stuff and just talk about it. So I kind of got into that, and I took a lot of insurance classes in college because of it instead of the investment classes. I kind of went that way. But yeah, it was just something I was interested in, but didn't know that I wanted to have a career in it, I guess.
What'd you like about it?
I love numbers. I was always the girl that loved algebra before English, that kind of thing. I love a good spreadsheet, love budgeting, I love money. And I thought when I graduated, I was like, I'm gonna go to Chicago. I'm gonna get into, corporate finance or investment banking or do something crazy like that. And I graduated college in 2010. So no one's really hiring a 22-year-old female to go do those things at the time. So I did do some corporate finance in Iowa where I grew up and kind of got my taste of that. And then life went a different direction.
So when you say corporate finance, you were like mergers and acquisitions for a small
No,
firm?
worked for a corporation, so maybe that's not the right term. So I was in a finance rotation at an office furniture manufacturer, a
Oh,
pretty large
okay.
one. And so I did cost accounting in the plant for 6 months, and then I did internal audit at the headquarters. So kind of,
Oh, so really getting into debits and credits and
yes,
understanding balance sheets and profit and loss statements and accrual accounting
right,
and all of that, which,
yes,
yeah, given my
boring.
my pre, oh, well, I don't know. I was an investment analyst for most of my career. I thought it was really interesting, actually, because Yeah, because there's so much that goes on in putting those statements together and interpretations
Hmm.
and then really backing into what the actual cash flow is versus the income statement and the role depreciation plays. And I just found it very
Love it.
fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody's drawn to different things. So it sounds like right out of college, you took that kind of a role, and
Hmm.
then how did it progress?
Yeah, so I met my now husband in college, and he was in the Air Force. So he went to pilot training while I had that first job, and then he dropped an assignment in Florida. And without him even asking, I'm like, "Well, it's time to move because I'm going to Florida." I grew up in Iowa, and so that caused me to leave that job, and I became a manager at a Target, which is what the job I wanted out of college. It's the only interview I didn't pass out of college. And I interviewed down in this market and did that for a year, which was fascinating, leading 120 people at the age of
Wow.
25. Yeah, it was cool. I learned more in that job than I've ever learned. Um, and and lasted about a year, which I thought I could do it longer, but you really give up your life working in retail. You all the holidays and the hours and 4 a.m. opens, midnight closes, all of that. Black Friday, all the things that Target
Oh
used to
my
do.
God.
Yeah, but it was fun. And then I got a job in finance at a hospital system, and that was my last job before going off on my own. And it was, hired for 40 hours a week, had to be there at 8, leave at 5, but I probably had about 5 hours of work to do a week. And I'm like, what am I doing? This isn't enough.
So it's the
Um,
opposite of the
it was
target.
the opposite. Yeah. So
Molly
yeah,
Rose, I'm curious, you said manager of a target was a role you had wanted. What about that
I
role
know.
spoke to you?
So when I was in college, I volunteered for the career fairs and I helped plan them with the career office at the business school. And Target was one of the jobs that when you were in college, you wanted because it was competitive. You had to be at the top of the top to get the job. And you really got a lot of responsibility, or it's called an executive team leader. So there's the manager of a store, and then there's three managers below them, and then there's about three managers below each of them before you get to a team member. So you're really high level for being the age you are. So I just knew that the experience would be really valuable for any job that I would be marketable because a lot of corporations hire from that pool of people knowing what they've learned. So that's kind of where my head was at with it. And I had some friends that had done it, and it, weird thing to want to do, but yeah, it was the job I was going for.
Would would I be correct in assuming that you enjoy competition, that you
Yeah,
enjoy
a little bit. Yeah, yeah. I do like to win. Yes.
I'm hearing that because that, as you described, you you had faith in yourself that you were someone that could take on a role like that at a
Yeah.
young age, and you wanted to compete to have that role,
Yes.
which
Yes,
is
absolutely.
um I'm just wondering what the skills are when because managing people is what you're doing now and you're about to describe
Hmm.
to us, and managing people is what you did at Target. What do you know about yourself that had you believe you could do it?
Um, well, I think I'll take it back to how I started this conversation. I think being the youngest of 10 years caused me to grow up to be able to speak to adults at a really young age. And when I stepped into this role, I could have a conversation with anyone. And I had to, performance manage people that were 40 years older than me at that age. Well, not quite 30 years older than me. Um, and and I think that was the biggest thing. It was all about how you convey a message to get people either to do something for you, like build a end cap in record time because everything had to be done fast, or show up to work on Saturdays so I don't have to fire you, right? And you had to figure out how to encourage and get them on your side, but also have them respect you at the same time. And I think I just grew up having to do that because I was just the youngest of everyone around me, and I was raised by four adults. So, if you count my siblings who were teenagers, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that was the most important skill. And then it just got stronger when I worked there. Yeah.
And I'd have to believe that part of that is intrinsic to you and who you are, even independent of being the youngest. You're describing interpersonal skills that many people,
Hmm.
I was going to say, never get good at, but I'm stepping back to say many people even don't
Don't
realize
know.
what it is. You're talking about leadership,
Yeah.
which, we have examples of leaders who are not about building consensus and are not about
No,
motivating others.
correct.
So it's a great skill set to have, Molly Rose. So I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, actually, you and I spoke to each other before. Your role as a military spouse, is that what led you to start this business? How did that come about?
Yeah, yeah. So when I quit the hospital system, my husband, well, we were engaged at the time. He was deployed and he came home to a fiance who was unemployed and we got married. And he's like, all right, you got, 5 month bandwidth. And I became what we now know is a virtual assistant. At the time, I didn't know that wasn't what it is today. This was about 12 years ago. And so I just started working for some people that I knew, and I was managing his business, um, basic work like email and calendar scheduling. And then I got into helping him with his website and helping plan events. And he was a speaker, so I'd help book speaking engagements and so on. And I just learned a ton. And then I started taking on more clients. And my peers, my military spouse peers, saw what I was doing and they're like, how do I do this? You're working remote. When your husband's home, you can be home. From these deployments, the ops were really heavy back then. You can travel and take your job with you. And so I just started training military spouses around me. Like we'd go to Starbucks and I'd teach them what to do, and we'd get a client and we'd coach them along. And I was like, wow, this is something. And so I created my first program to do it to reach more military spouses. And that's gone through several iterations, and now it's a certification program. And it's been amazing. We've trained 160 assistants, and I'd say about 80% of them are military spouses at this time. So it's been really, my mission has been fulfilled, I guess. I just want to do it bigger now. Yeah.
So Molly Rose, how did you, I'm interested in general of how you find clients, and then of
Mhm.
course how you find people interested in being VAs. But that first start, the gentleman you talked about, this was a
Yeah.
friend of yours. How did you find?
Yes. So out of the Target job, I had gone to high school with a girl who also worked at Target, had the same role in Iowa. And so when I was quitting the job, I reached out to her just to kind of pick her brain. And she said, yes, do it. You need to get your life back, and come to this conference with me. And it was called Succeed Faster. And it was a conference for high potential young professionals. So seniors in college and then right out of college to come and have 3 days of speakers and networking and all of this. And so I went and my mind was blown. It was life changing on so many levels. I learned what the term entrepreneur meant, which I know sounds crazy today, but they didn't teach that in school when we were younger. I learned that you could, make money offering your own services without a W-2. I didn't know that, among a bunch of other things. And I was seeing my peers at that conference do some of the same. They were out starting their own businesses. So as a result of that, the founder of that conference lost his assistant throughout that time, and he was hiring someone for a project actually, to help crowdfund for a student loan debt documentary. So it was my role to go out on social media, create a campaign, and get people to donate for this cause. And so we successfully raised $75,000, had this documentary. In the meantime, he lost his assistant, like I mentioned. And so I asked him no less than 7 times to hire me as his assistant. And then it just grew from there. And I got really good at supporting him. And then he would tell people about it. And then it was I'd have a referral and then a referral. I've never marketed. And that's something I teach my VAs or anyone. Just be so good that people talk about you and you'll never have to find a job. I've never had to go try to find work. And that's if you can get that under your belt, it's a lot easier.
I'm thinking, Molly Rose, how we just talked about how you take for granted a certain level of communication skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? Both sort
Mm-hmm.
of being politically savvy, if you will, to motivate people. It seems to me that communication between a business owner and a VA is one of the most important things. So, could you
Absolutely.
comment on that and how do you teach that? If you
Yeah, absolutely.
both to the business owner, frankly, as well as the
Yeah, and a lot of it is to the business owner. I think that what business owners don't recognize and virtual assistants is a virtual assistant isn't just an assistant. Isn't they're not. I think of the old Mad Men, and even back then they weren't just assistants. I think of the old Mad Men picture, right? All the women are out in the lobby taking phone calls, scheduling, and walking the little appointment cards over to the desk, right? That's like what we saw assistants do. And today they're so underutilized. So what I see happening is business owners aren't letting their assistants be autonomous and come in and say, hey, I need you to fix this, figure it out, and have them do that. Take on big projects. Don't have to just go task by task and do this, do that, and check off a to-do list. So the communication really comes in with trusting one another and building that rapport and getting them involved in your business. And it works so much better than you having to come up with everything that they do all week. They should hold a higher role within your business, a really important role, if that's hitting on what you're asking, kind of.
yes, and could you be more specific? Like, is there a template or questions that you um, that help people who might not be as natural at communicating as it sounds like you are?
Yes. So we do have onboarding, templates that we have our assistants use. And then if you hire through my agency, we give them to the business owner on their side of how to get to know one another. But at the end of the day, we're all human and we need to be treating each other that way, right? So the relationships that I see break down are the ones where they don't meet on Zoom once a week, right? Even 15 minutes on a Monday morning, it makes all the difference for how productive an assistant's going to be within your business and how you're going to treat them and honor their work. So that's extremely important. And then another thing that I tell both parties is how you task and communicate. So where things can get really broken down is if a business owner is tasking a virtual assistant and they're doing it via a project management tool like Asana, email, text, phone call, Google Hangouts. This has happened to me. Voxer, all in one day. How can you possibly be successful? And that really starts with a business owner being clear about what they do, how they do it, what they need an assistant to do for them, and then letting them do that without this micromanaging effect.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's just you have to kind of release control as a business owner and trust that you have a professional working for you with time, right? It doesn't
Yes.
happen overnight, but you can get a good sense if you have a good assistant from the get-go.
And what do you think makes a good assistant?
I think an assistant that really understands your business. So you can tell when you're hiring someone if they're going to be good by the questions they're asking. So, for example, are you clear that they understand how you earn revenue, who your customers are, what your systems are, what you do all day that you shouldn't be doing? If they're asking you those questions, they understand business a little more than the average bear, and those are the ones that you kind of want to look for that are coming in and they're interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them. It's a good way to do it.
So, Molly Rose, how do you find people like that?
How do I find it's hard? Um, so a lot of our assistants come to us word of mouth. So big on referrals. We do some marketing, and I share webinars, and they go through my certification program. And that's been interesting because we get trained virtual assistants that come in and want to work with us. But when I've done let that happen without them going through my training, something always happens. So it's really important that we vet and certify everyone that we work with and make sure that they're doing a lot of the things that I've mentioned on this podcast already. Um, so a lot of it's that personal touch. I don't just take anyone. We really get to know who's interested in the program and if it's a good fit, and we're honest about it, and then have them come through.
And are your assistants working part-time for various businesses?
Uh,
Um, how does it
yeah.
work exactly?
Yeah, so the beauty of being a virtual assistant or hiring one is it's a fractional contract, right? So fractional virtual assistants is kind of the term that I like to use for that. So as a business owner, it's great because you can just hire for 20 hours a month, 5 hours a week. That's kind of the minimum that I recommend and what we offer because it's not worth it for anything less. And then you can grow it from there. So it's common for a virtual assistant to have about 3 accounts that make up 30 to 40 hours, depending on how much they want to work. And then some get hired full time into agencies or bigger entrepreneur companies where they have to have a full time role. And that's really cool to see as well.
And do the virtual assistants work for you? So you're shaking your head. So they work for
Well,
you and not directly for the business. So,
so,
for example, if they need to take time off, are you bringing other assistants in to help, or how does that work?
yes. So we have a hybrid approach. So my program teaches assistants how to go get their own jobs if they would like to
Ah,
do that, or they can come through and get clients from us. However you want to do it, my goal is just to make sure you have clients and you are making the money you want to make. So we do that. And then in the case of if they're through our agency and an assistant goes on maternity leave, as an example, we do have a process to fill in for those bigger chunks. If it's just a week vacation here and there, it usually works out with the business owner to take that time off. But yeah, works really well.
it sounds like it works very well.
Yeah.
I'm I'm curious how you made the transition from what I'm making another assumption, whether or not I should write that you had income coming in, you were working as a virtual assistant on your own. What changed that had you move into a more entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it was just the opportunity. And business owners were coming to me saying, how do I hire your virtual assistants? And so we were doing it for free. We were doing these placements. I was like, there's a lot that goes into this, a job description, making sure it's the right match, giving them candidates. I'm like, this is a surface. and mostly helping them get clear on what they need is 80% of what we do. Like, they're overwhelmed and we have to go through that process to consult them on, this is the type of virtual assistant, these are the things you need, and help them through that. So it was really just solving the need that we saw coming in and doing a good job at that. Yeah.
Who's we?
Oh, yes. I have a partner who was a former assistant of mine, and she has an HR background. So we used to laugh because when I was working at the hospital and she was working in HR at a staffing agency, and we would just call each other crying because we were like, we have to go to work today. And we hated it. And she was making like $15 an hour. It was a joke. And so this came up, she was my first call because she had all that staffing experience. So she runs that side of the business beautifully. And I couldn't do it without her.
Oh, it's
Wouldn't do
always nice to have a partner.
it. It is. Yeah.
And you've been
Yes.
doing it for over a decade now, correct?
Yeah, I've been training that long. We've had the staffing agency for probably 5 years, 5 or 6 years. Hmm.
And Molly Rose, when you started, I guess I am curious about the money. Was the initial impetus to start as a VA, and a financial drive? Um,
No, because I certainly took a pay cut. So it took me about 2 years to make up my corporate income,
yeah.
just because I didn't know. And this is part of what I teach my assistants. I didn't know what we should charge and charging your worth and what things are worth and projects and tracking time appropriately. So, no, it was more for freedom. It was more that I could do this job whenever I wanted, even if I made less money. And that's still for everything I do. That comes first. Yeah.
Um, I am curious, what are the things you enjoy doing with the time freedom?
Yeah. I'm a huge traveler. So when my husband deploys, or he did all the time, now he doesn't as much. I'm waiting for that though. I go off and I go to Europe and travel and I work and meet people and hang out and that's my big thing. My mom is 75 this year, and so we go on a lot of trips together now because I want to spend that time with her. So
Nice.
yeah, yeah,
Is she
prioritizing
still in
relationship.
Iowa?
She's in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, okay.
Same, same.
Exactly. Not in Florida.
No, we're
Yeah.
all retirees, I think should be, right? I don't know.
So, are there particular kind of business owners that you tend to work with?
N- Me personally, yes, I flock to public speakers, authors, coaches. That's kind of my vibe. And I still do a lot of client work because I love it, but I do a lot of project work. Like I'll come in and fix your systems or get your website up and running, things like that. For the agency, we get all sorts of clients. We don't have a niche at all. And it's something I thought maybe we should because, maybe it'd be better. But I'm like, there's no consistency. How do I choose what direction to go? So everything from real estate agents, financial advisors, um, a lot of agencies like marketing agencies, just because of the network I'm in, and then the speaker, author, coach, just again through referrals and the networks I'm in. It's kind of where we get our business.
Thank you. So, not necessarily service-oriented businesses. It sounds like they could be
Yeah, yeah,
also.
not a lot of brick and mortar or anything like that. It's mostly online businesses. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So it is more service oriented. You're not getting, a manufacturing
no,
business or that kind of thing
yeah.
who CEO needs an assistant. That kind
Not
of thing is fine.
usually. Mm-mm. We've had some product-based companies, but very few and far between.
Is it mostly solopreneurs or small businesses?
We're actually getting a lot more small businesses now, a lot of agencies. So like, you know, 5 to 10 people working there. Medical, we just got a big account for a medical doctor that is growing his own personal um,
Right.
clinics and stuff. He hired 3 of our assistants. I was like, this is great. So that I'm excited to see how that goes.
And by the same token, most of my listeners are career changers, women who may be
Mm.
making a transition. What you of course mentioned military spouses, but what other sort of demographic or psychographic would you say your
Yeah.
assistant? uh,
Yes. A lot of moms. So empty nesters. So we have gotten some of those that have kids that are going off to college and they're like, I don't want to go back to the office. Um, so that's again, it's always about that flexibility and freedom. Someone that's like, I can't be tied to having to work Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4 through Friday, whatever it is. That's the main drive, I think, of this. And then being able to make pretty great money just working when you want to work, and doing admin work.
And so, by the same token, if someone's thinking about um, the potential need for a virtual assistant, you mentioned that at a minimum, it would be, 5 hours a week, 20 hours a month. And how much should one expect to pay by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
hour?
So if you're hiring through an agency, it's always a little more. Um, V I'll just speak to the VA side. If I had a virtual assistant, I don't want to see her, she or him. We have a lot of women, so mostly women. So I'll say her charge less than $25 an hour. But we're just seeing that go up and up as the economy is. I drove by the pizza place the other day, and you can flip pizzas for $25 an hour. And I think being an assistant is a lot more than that. So yeah, that's kind of the starting rate. And then it just goes up from there based on their skill set. So it's not unheard of to pay $40 an hour for an assistant, but they're really, at that rate, you want to make sure they're really efficient.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I will, of course, be including your website and other information on the show notes. Is there anything else before, as we're starting to wrap up, that, any information that you would want our listeners to know about
Yeah.
your service?
Yes, so I'm mollyrosespeed.com online. You can find that website. There's a catch-all for everything that I do. And then virtualassistantmanagement.com is our agency. And you can, if you're interested in learning more about hiring an assistant and creating some more time freedom for yourself, Christina does free discovery calls, and she'll tell you if you're ready, or she'll tell you to call you in 6 months. She's very straightforward. So that's why we have her. So that's a great phone call place to start if you're interested and don't know if it's the right time, or maybe you're overwhelmed and you're like, it's time, this is it. And then I'm on Instagram at Molly Rose Speed.
Thank you. And you're then bringing up a question to my mind was, when would she think that someone is not yet ready?
I
She
think
listening for.
yes, a lot of it comes down to clarity. So if we can't get you clear on what you do and how you do it and who you do it for on our call, it's a pretty good sign. Like, oh, okay, you're still in that deciding factor. You're playing with a lot of balls. You got to kind of clean some stuff up before we can get someone in there to be really productive for you. We kind of have a rule that if she or I wouldn't take a client, we're not going to allow our team to. We want to make sure that everybody's a good match before we kind of have you make the investment and have the assistant make the investment of time. So it really comes down to having that kind of buttoned up. You don't necessarily need to know all the things you need an assistant to do. I have a great exercise for people where if you're unclear, just take a week and write down everything you do. Just have a notepad back next to your desk or in your kitchen, and you'll quickly see that there's a ton of things on your plate that you don't need to be doing. And they could be things that a virtual assistant could take off your plate, a cleaning lady, a snow removal person, Instacart for groceries. If you're a really busy person, you have the resources to do that. It's worth it, I think. I don't think women ask for
We
help
use
enough.
Instacart for sure.
Yes.
Family.
Yes. So that's a great place to start. And it'll start to create your job description, and then from there, Christina, my partner, she'll pull up all sorts of stuff. Just by Googling you, we'll be like, oh, who's doing this? Who's doing this? Who's doing this? And that'll create even more um, opportunity for support for you.
I love it. I do like to end with the same question, and that question is, how has your definition of success shifted, Molly Rose, from the time that you got the position at Target that you imagined,
Mhm.
where you are now?
Yeah. So I used to think it was making $100,000. It's like that's it. This is the goal. This is it. It's all about money. And I made a lot of bad decisions just to make more money. And today that's not the case. And I don't. Success for me is the freedom to do what I want when I want, and I truly believe that I have that. And so I feel great about it. And yeah, that's
Wow,
it.
thank you for that. And I agree that sometimes it takes being older and going through many iterations. It sounds like you've discovered it at a young age that
Hmm.
um, money can't give you I mean, once you have basic needs met, etc., the freedom really comes from being in charge of your time,
Yes.
because you can be making multiples of 100,000, but somebody expects you to be at a desk from,
Hmm.
7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and that's not freedom.
No, nope. And
So,
money, you don't die with your money. So
exactly. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to describe what gets you excited and your business that I think may speak to a number of our listeners.
thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Making Change with Your Money. Certified financial planner Laura Rotter specializes in helping people just like you organize, clarify, and invest their money in order to support a life of purpose and meaning. Go to www.trueabundanceadvisors.com/workbook for a free resource to help you on your journey. Disclaimer, please remember that the information shared by this podcast does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. It's for information purposes only. You should seek appropriate professional advice for your specific information.